We live in an age where stupidity is not just tolerated, it's celebrated, where shallowness is rewarded, wisdom ignored, and noise amplified. But what if this isn't an accident? What if the glorification of stupidity is not a side effect of modern life, but a feature? A carefully cultivated condition that keeps us distracted, compliant, and endlessly consuming. In the next few minutes, we'll uncover the uncomfortable truth about why stupidity has become a cultural virtue in modern society, how ignorance is packaged as entertainment, and how media, politics, and even education profit from keeping us shallow. But the real danger isn't what we consume, it's what we lose: wisdom. Stay with us till the end, because the final insight is not only the most important, it's the most transformative, and it may very well change the way you see the world and yourself forever. Let's begin with a paradox. Never in history has humanity had so much access to information, and never have we seemed so confused, divided, and intellectually impoverished. Scroll through your phone, and you can find the answer to almost anything in seconds. But knowledge is not the same as wisdom, and information is not the same as understanding. Instead of cultivating discernment, our hyper-connected world has produced a flood of trivia, gossip, and outrage. This is what philosopher Neil Postman warned about decades ago. He said we risk becoming a people amusing ourselves to death. And he was right, because when every idea is reduced to a meme, every debate to a shouting match, and every complex truth to a clickbait headline, what happens? Serious thought becomes impossible. And in that vacuum, stupidity thrives. But let's be clear, stupidity here doesn't mean a lack of intelligence. Many of the loudest voices in society are highly intelligent people. No, stupidity is something different. Stupidity is the refusal to think deeply. It is the elevation of opinion over evidence, the triumph of sensation over reflection, the celebration of ignorance as authenticity. And this refusal to think is not random, it's rewarded. To understand why stupidity is glorified, we need to follow the money. Modern economies are built on attention. The longer you're hooked to your screen, the more ads you see, the more data you give away, the more predictable your behavior becomes. And what captures attention better? A slow, thoughtful exploration of truth, or a flashy, outrageous, emotionally charged spectacle? The answer is obvious. Outrage sells. Simplicity sells. Stupidity sells. The result is a culture where those who shout the loudest rise the fastest, where the nuanced voice, the careful thinker, the wise elder is drowned out by the viral influencer, the provocative pundit, the reckless entertainer. We are not in an information age. We are in an attention marketplace. And in this marketplace, wisdom has no market value. Stupidity does. And so stupidity is not just allowed to spread, it is subsidized. Platforms reward it, advertisers feed it, algorithms amplify it. The end result, ignorance is profitable. But let's dig deeper. The glorification of stupidity doesn't start online. It starts in our institutions. Modern education in many places is less about cultivating wisdom than about producing workers. Students are trained to memorize facts, regurgitate formulas, and chase grades, not to ask profound questions or wrestle with complexity. The philosopher Ivan Illich once said that modern schooling doesn't educate. It schooled people into obedience. Think about it. The goal is often not to nurture independent thinkers, but to produce efficient cogs for the economic machine. And when you produce generations conditioned to obey, consume, and conform, what happens? Depth becomes dangerous. Wisdom becomes subversive. And stupidity, shallow thinking, blind conformity becomes safe. Is it any wonder then that many young people graduate with diplomas in hand, but without the tools to navigate meaning, morality, or truth? They can solve equations, but not their own anxieties. They can recite theories, but not question systems. And into that void rushes the easy, the entertaining, the stupid. Nowhere is the glorification of stupidity more obvious than in politics. Across the world, leaders rise not by demonstrating wisdom, but by mastering performance. Theatrics over thought, sound bites over substance, emotional manipulation over rational debate. Why? Because in the attention economy, Politics has become entertainment, and entertainment rewards spectacle, not wisdom. The tragic consequence is that nations are often governed not by the wise, but by the entertainingly ignorant. And worse, people start to believe that wisdom itself is elitist, boring, even oppressive. Think about that for a second. In a world of unprecedented complexity, climate change, artificial intelligence, global inequality, our societies are increasingly run by those least capable of deep thought. That is not just a cultural failure. It is a civilizational crisis. Stupidity doesn't just serve systems of profit and power. It serves psychological comfort. Wisdom is hard. Wisdom demands humility, patience, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. To seek wisdom is to admit you don't have all the answers, to face painful truths, to endure uncertainty. Stupidity is easy. Stupidity feels good. It gives you quick answers, simple villains, and comforting illusions. And so many people choose stupidity not because they lack intelligence, but because they crave comfort. They don't want to wrestle with reality. They want to escape it. And in a world filled with anxiety, fear, and rapid change, this escape is seductive. But here's the paradox. The more we escape into stupidity, the more powerless we become. And the more powerless we become, the more we cling to stupidity as a shield. Technology didn't invent stupidity, but it amplified it. Think about the architecture of social media. The like button, the retweet, the algorithm. They don't reward depth, they reward reaction. A carefully considered essay is invisible compared to a 15-second clip that shocks, provokes, or entertains. This is why misinformation spreads faster than truth. Lies are simple. Truth is complicated. And in a world driven by speed, the simple always wins. Marshall McLuhan once said, "The medium is the message." Today, the message of our media is clear. Be loud, be quick, be shallow. And in this environment, wisdom dies not because it is defeated, but because it is ignored. But let's go even further. Stupidity isn't just normalized, it's glorified. Look at how our culture often portrays the wise thinker. Boring, out of touch, irrelevant. Now look at how it portrays the loud, reckless entertainer. Exciting, relatable, even heroic. This is not an accident. Anti-intellectualism has deep roots in modern society. Wisdom threatens the status quo because wisdom questions power. Wisdom cannot be easily marketed, cannot be neatly packaged, cannot be sold. So instead of elevating wisdom, society ridicules it. It mocks philosophers, dismisses scholars, and trivializes spirituality. In their place, it elevates influencers, celebrities, and provocateurs. And the result? A society that doesn't just tolerate stupidity, but worships it. All of this leads us to the central tragedy, the death of wisdom. Wisdom is not information. Wisdom is not intelligence. Wisdom is the ability to live in alignment with truth, to discern the deeper patterns of life, to balance knowledge with compassion, and power with humility. But wisdom cannot survive in a culture that rewards only noise. It withers when drowned by distraction. It dies when people no longer value it, seek it, or recognize it. And when wisdom dies, what happens? Societies lose their compass. They drift into chaos, repeating the same mistakes, unable to learn, unable to grow. This is where we are now, a civilization adrift, cut off from its own wisdom traditions, seduced by stupidity, intoxicated by spectacle. So far, we've seen how stupidity is glorified by economics, education, politics, psychology, technology, and culture. But here's the final, most powerful insight. Stupidity isn't just imposed on us, it is chosen by us. And that choice, repeated billions of times each day, is what sustains the system. Because while it's true that algorithms manipulate us, that institutions fail us, that culture misleads us, it is also true that we have agency. We can choose to think. We can choose to seek wisdom. We can choose to unplug from the glorification of stupidity and begin the hard, quiet work of reclaiming depth. And here's the radical shift. Stupidity may be glorified, but wisdom cannot be killed. It lives dormant in every human being, waiting to be reawakened. So how do we resist? How do we restore wisdom in an age of stupidity? It begins with attention. Attention is the currency of power. Where you place your attention determines who you become. So the first step is to reclaim your attention from the noise. The second step is reflection. True wisdom requires stillness, patience, and the willingness to ask difficult questions. Who am I? What matters? What is true? The third step is courage. Because wisdom is not just about thinking, it's about living differently. It's about resisting conformity, rejecting shallow answers, and daring to live with depth in a shallow world. And finally, the last step is connection. Wisdom is not solitary, it is shared. We cultivate it together through dialogue, community, and tradition. And in this, we discover that wisdom is not just personal, it is civilizational. So let me ask you, are you willing to live differently? Are you willing to trade the comfort of stupidity for the challenge of wisdom? Because here's the truth. Modern society glorifies stupidity not because wisdom is dead, but because wisdom is dangerous. Wisdom awakens. Wisdom liberates. Wisdom disrupts. And in a world that thrives on distraction, the most radical act you can commit is to think deeply, to live wisely, and to refuse to be entertained into oblivion. So as you leave this video, remember this. The death of wisdom is not inevitable. It is a choice. And the moment you choose wisdom, even in small ways, you begin to revive it, not just for yourself, but for society. This is how civilizations change. Not with noise, not with spectacle, but with wisdom, quiet, steady, unshakable wisdom. The question now is, will you be part of its rebirth or will you join in its burial? The choice is yours.